Greetings from the far side of the galaxy. I'm Fury, your host of the most, here to tell you everything you need to know about snow. Wrong snow. There we go. Housamo has a new event and I am out of ideas. Seriously, please leave some in the comments. I've got nothing, so I might as well make this one off a series. Let's get right into it with everything new in the Valentine's Snow Fight event. Starting with the most popular of the bunch and the guy who cucked us out of getting a limited Narlantotep or Azazel, Jacob. The basic rundown is that its nether attribute, spirit type, and its epithet is the Snowball and Fist. His first skill, roughly translated as "Where are you reaching out to?" has 3 parts. First, movement expansion in every direction to himself for 2 turns when he appears, and giving healing strengthening to all allies in 1 square whenever he moves, but also to 2 enemies in front of him. Already, that sounds pretty fun, giving Jacob one of the best movement expansions in the game and then daring us to use it. Next, Snowball Thrower, 80% chance to freeze hit units and enemies to the left and right, but he loses 50 CP when attacking. It also has a 90% chance to get concentration at phase start tacked on to the end. Third is Morning One. Does someone fucking die in this event? Worries aside, the most important part of this skill is that it applies Darkness Strengthening, healing 1000 HP every turn. He also gets up to 50 CP when he's hit at 90, heals enemies in a diamond shape at 70, and applies Blessing in this range at 30% when attacking. Finally, Best Boxer gives guts to himself and applies buff reversal to every enemy on the board at phase start and a slight stackable attack up every turn. Jacob is a weird unit and it's all due to that healing strengthening skill which nearly doubles any healing received. It's nice that he spreads it to allies, actually making Jacob a pretty good healer, but he also gives it to enemies. I imagine he'd be best for long drawn out fights where healing the enemy doesn't really matter. You know those quests where the game tells you to survive in X amount of turns? Yeah, those. His research file does have some interesting stuff in it, giving us some more context on his character. The most interesting part comes towards the end. Never will the light of the all-powerful, all-knowing reach his blind eyes, which is why Jacob is always looking at a future that does not fear God. I like how this is what separates those like Fushi and Tezcatlipoca from people like Jacob and Ulaanbaatar. All of them have pillar artifacts, but Fushi and Tezcatlipoca live in the past, constantly wanting to recreate what is long gone. Jacob and Ulan, on the other hand, look towards the future because one is ironically blind and thus cannot look into the past, and the other has nothing in their past worth savoring, so they're intentionally trying to leave it behind. It speaks to the fatal trap of having a pillar artifact and how these two have escaped it. Going down to the second most popular character on the poll, let's begin with Yoritomo. Its wood attribute and magic type and its epithet is Wise Brother's Snowball Launcher, and just in case anyone was wondering, Oniwaka knew the Land of Wa's exile and was eventually killed by Yoritomo's men, which is why he's featured in the art. His first skill is Deterrent, or Deterrent of Maneuvers, something like that. He's immune to any weapon changes, steals up to 10 CP from every enemy on the board, and paralyzes hit units at 80%. It works pretty well with his second skill, System Builder, since it gives him paralysis advantage. It also has him give enemies a weakness to magic damage and reduce the damage he takes from swords. His third skill is named Demon Warrior of Snow. Badass. It makes him immune to charm and gives him brawn and adamantine at phase start. His final skill literally translates to hunter, but it could also mean cornered person. Interesting to say the least. It has like 4 different parts, so bear with me for a bit. It makes him immune to bind, skill lock, and double lock, and at turn start he has a 90% chance to apply paralysis to allies to his left and right. After being hit, he has a 90% chance to apply break, and after attacking, he has a 90% chance to remove a debuff to himself. Ironically enough, despite being a strategist, the way you use Yoritomo is pretty simple. You point him in the enemy's direction and then just whack him on the head with a really big stick. He gets brawn, inflicts paralysis when he has a paralysis advantage, and inflicts magic weakness when he's one type. Dude just hits hard. But what I find most interesting is the lore we get about him. Yoritomo is sort of like the anti-Fushi. Instead of worshipping the ground their exiled sibling walks on, Yoritomo is deathly afraid of them. His skills not only reference that through their name, but what they do. He resists sword type, you know, the damage type of the player. His research file even states he fears those who rush headfirst into danger because they remind him of his brother. I'm glad we got him as a limited unit. He's been in the game for a long time and I actually want to know more about his character. We know his personality, a backstabber motivated by extreme paranoia, but we never actually get to see much of him in the main quest. While I wish he could have been the main focus there, I'm glad we get to see him in action here in an event. After that is everyone's favorite pink Papillon, Tane... Why is Yasuyori mooning the camera? You know what? Doesn't matter. Anyway, Tanatomo is our second piece of Warmonger rep for the event. Its fire attribute, gun type. Why is this the only unit to be gun type when literally everyone has guns? And its title, Danter's Gatling Gun. The first skill is Snowfield Advisor. It gives attack up to themselves and allies in front of them at 70% every odd turn. It also gives combo to allies in slash range at 50%. Next is Flower and Scatter. It gives combo to self at 90 and obstruct to enemies in the third square in front of them at 80% after moving. If he doesn't move, he gives up to 10 CP to himself and allies in slash range. Third is Serious Person, and yes, that is its actual name. It applies decrease HP before being hit to enemies in this range at 80%. It also gives break immunity and takes up to 10 CP from hit units. His final skill is named Hole Piercer, just in case you had the gall to think Tane was a bottom. He gets non-combo strengthening to himself when appearing, applies fear to enemies in spear range, and is immune to paralysis. It's ironic that both of the Warmongers are renowned strategists, but they both have very unga-bunga units. You put Tanatomo behind the big stick so they can get even bigger, which is exactly what she said. Their selection of debuffs isn't bad either, but the debuffs have that odd range of 2 squares ahead of Tane. It's easy to play around though, so it's not that big of a deal. Their research file does have 2 cool tidbits towards the end. One, explaining that they pity those who are loved regardless of how they feel, explaining their positive relationship with Linan's seed, and that he dislikes Yoritomo and Baylor because they remind him of his own backstabbing nature. That aside, he's in the same boat as Yoritomo. We don't get to see much of them in the main quest, so I'll settle for seeing them in an event. The next dude honestly took me by surprise. Given that he has some relationship with Zeus, the actual world rep of Olympus, I figured he'd get a story-based limited unit, but whatever I guess. Its water attribute and 1 type, despite its epithet being the archer goes guns akimbo. Its first skill is Agents of Marriage, and it gives charm strengthening to him and allies when appearing. And at phase start, he attracts enemies on the entire board by 1 square and applies burn and conflagration after being hit at 90 and 60%. His next skill translates into something like a white snow melter. After attacking, he gives them this at 80%. It's a weird skill and I frankly don't know how to describe it. And if he does or doesn't move, he applies remove debuff to himself and allies in 1 square at 60%. The third skill, Kin of Light, gives advantage against charm, applies blessing to hit units at 90% and protection to himself and directly adjacent allies at 60%. Finally is Stealth Invader, a sneaky reference to him being a kinda sorta member of the Invaders. It gives blessing advantage, immunity to possession, and applies weakness to hit units and adjacent enemies at 80%. Honestly, Shinya's unit is putting in the work. It's probably the second or third best unit of the event depending on how you view Jacob. If you manage to get both Jacob and Shinya, put them together on a team, I'm sure they'll do wonders. Or you could say, I'm sure they'll do life wonders. Come on, laugh, that was funny. His research file sets up his friendship with Gira Makala and foreshadows his ties to the Invaders. Also, I'm not sure if this is the first time, but it also has the name of his cafe, Cafe Asterism. And today's final unit is our first playable elephant. That's not a 2-star. Skipping his 3-star unit just cause I don't feel like talking about it. It's Infernal Attribute and Blow type, and it's titled the Rampaging Elephant of Change. His first skill is Trial and Error Planner, and oh boy is it weird. At the beginning of the first 3 phase turn, he applies Weapon Change to Magic to himself. Now, do I know what a phase turn is? No, not in the slightest. And when appearing, he gets Vigor Strengthening and Vigor to himself at phase start at 90% and an immunity to weakness. His next skill is named Black Elephant, and yeah, he sure as fuck is. He has an 80% chance for oppression to hit units and a 20% chance to apply oppression to all enemies at turn start. And gives oppression weakening to all enemies at phase start, and he has oppression advantage. His third skill is called Sucking Knight, just in case you thought he wasn't a bottom, but it probably translates better into something like Inhalation Knight. On miss, he has a 90% chance to get up to 12 CP, steals up to 8 CP from hit units, and gives oppression advantage to allies in 1 square after being buffed at 90%. His final skill is either Exchange Student or Exchange Student who holds out, but I think it's the latter. After attacking, he has a 70% chance to get 400 HP, gets Guts to himself at 100, and an 80% chance to give adjacent allies crit when he misses. Overall, an impressively good unit for a 4-star. I think the best way to use him would be on an oppression-based team, taking advantage of his screen-wide oppression. He wouldn't exactly be the damage dealer, rather enabling others with better weapon types the opportunity. Regarding his research file, he's basically a himbo Licho. He has a bad habit of messing things up, especially when he acts without thinking, something that landed him in a lot of hot water in his home world. His sacred artifact is his trunk, which can suck up liquids, and by sucking up enough, his body can actually grow in size. So that's something for all you macro enthusiasts out there. This event appears to be focused on helping Yoritomo get back on his feet and find some self-confidence. It's not exactly untread ground for Housamo, but it is a story that works well enough. I really like the units from this event. Every single one of them manages to have their uses, with none of them being particularly bad. If I had to rank them, it'd be Yoritomo first for his very simple and easy playstyle, Jacob second, Tanatomo third, Shinya fourth, and Yoritomo fifth. That being said, they all have potential for really cool strategies, especially Jacob with his whole healing strengthening. With the meat of the video out of the way, it's time we do our Patreon shoutouts. For our 3 stars, we have special thanks to 87 Werog, Deku, Zara Chow, Choron, Garyon Lefay, Dragon King Yara, and Kayun. For 4 stars, we have Miki Moon and Unknown RC, the perfect Meowvelous band. For our Super D2per special 5-star shoutouts, we have Vanilla Flower, the misfortune-eating wolf. Then Poor Mage, who's dressed to kill. Next, Sky King 64, the immortal gambler. Finally, Mahagasaur, the battlefield braggadocio. As always, thank you for watching, and this is Rose Fury signing out.